Hello everyone and welcome to the Schoolbox version 15 release walkthrough for version 15. We're going to be going through the version 15 release today and going over some of the features and functions that you should be aware of for this pretty important release for us. So we're going to spend some time, perhaps about an hour today, going over all the features and functions so you can see exactly what is included and what you need to be aware of while we're going through this system. So just to start with, I'm just going to go through some house cleaning and to get you up to speed with how this webinar will work. So firstly, we're using obviously YouTube Hangouts on air for this. We had great success with this last time, and we do recommend you use the Q&A function of this app so that you can pose questions. At the end of the session, I'm going to go through all those questions and answer any questions that you have. If you do have any other questions that you're not signed up to Google or something like that, you can post them on Twitter. We've got a hashtag there, SBV15, that we'll be monitoring, and we'll also answer any questions via Twitter as well. So during this event, we'll obviously gather any questions you've got, but the other feature that I wanted to point out is the little applause icon. We found that really useful last year for you to use the applause button. Give us some applause whenever there's something you like. If there's something you don't like, perhaps negative it down. That was really useful for us to review and see what we got right, what we got wrong following the webinar. So we'd love to get your feedback during the event as well. And of course, we are going to be recording this and posting it to YouTube afterwards. So if you do miss out or you're coming in late, you will be able to go back to YouTube to review this content at any time. Just to get started, we'll go over some of the broad highlights of this release. Today we've got curriculum mapping, learning analytics, synergetic Markbook integration, multiple profiles, Office 365 integration, inline audio recording, inline content previewing, and the ability to minimize components on your homepage. They're our main key features that I think are important, and I'll cover off most of those today. But there's also a lot of little small things included in all of that I thought it would be important to go through and point out along the way. So today's session, I'm going to go by user types. I'm going to start off with the admin section, go via user admin, through the admin system, what's new in the admin system. Then I'm going to log in as a teacher and show you what it looks like from a teacher's perspective and what's new from a teacher's perspective. And then finally, we'll go over what's new from a student's perspective. So just to get straight into it, I'm just going to switch now to our demo system. So in our demo system, primarily you'll notice the first thing here is that it looks the same. So we did talk about earlier in our user group meetup that idea of responsive design and mobile first implementation. We have held that back another release. So we do plan to have that ready for you for the next release. But in this release, we're going to be using the same Chrome and the same navigation style for the next 6 months. But there will be a new look and feel coming out in the 15.5 release later in the year. That's going to be our main focus for the next release that we do. The other thing that I want to talk about before I get into the nuts and bolts of what's changed is some of the underneath the hood types of changes that we've made with this system. So obviously we invest a lot of time and effort into the things that you don't see. And that's really important to us. It's really important that we keep maintaining the code base and we keep updating the system so that it can look forward to the future and it can keep to evolve over time. The three main things that we've changed under the hood for this release: we've got a new image handling system. Now that allows us to process images a bit more efficiently, but it also gives us new functionality. You'll notice that primarily with the ability for us to handle animated GIFs. When you upload animated GIFs, they'll now play back no matter what size they're resized to. Another feature that we've been rebuilding under the hood is the new date handling system. Now I'm going to show you in the admin area some of the new date handling functions, but the whole date handling system has been actually rebuilt from the ground up. This allows us to handle dates a lot better, localize them a lot better, and just generally deal with date functions a lot more cleanly. Now, probably the biggest change for this release was a whole new file system underlying Schoolbox. So previously we had 3 or 4 different file systems for student submissions, for student returns, for files that are uploaded, and for files that are just generally floating around in Schoolbox. We had these different file systems located around the place. Now, managing all of those different file systems was quite a complex task for us. So what we've done in this version is join all of those file systems into a single unified file system. That unified file system has meant that we can unify our file encoding and transcoding ability. We can unify where we store the data and also make sure that we can store it in various different locations. But it also means we're going to be deduping all of the content across all of the different locations that it could be stored. So this new file system has deduplication built in. That should save you a small amount of storage on your servers. So immediately upon update, you will actually notice that we should decrease in size of volume that we actually take up in storage, as this deduping engine will automatically kick in during the migration process. So that's about it for the undercover features. Just wanted to go over those because there's not a lot said about them, but they are important from a perspective of making sure that the system keeps evolving. Now, first off, I'm going to go straight into the admin system, and we're going to have a look at some of the new features from an admin perspective. Straight away, we have fixed up the links here for the reports. You now have 2 links for the activity report and the login report. The login report is going to give you information in a bit more detail, but specifically about the role. Now, we've had a lot of schools ask us whether they could have that role information in there, just so that they could then get stats on how many people from different role types are using the system. You'll now be able to export that data to a CSV, and then obviously process that to have a look at how many people in a certain role, how many parents have logged in. That type of information is now all reportable on. The other things that we've added into the system is the ability now to link users together. Now, this was a really important change for us. We've had many use cases for this for a while now. So the most, I guess, important one obviously is parents and staff that are both parents and staff at the same time. We had a lot of feedback that it would have been a lot easier for them to have one account. What we've done is allowed you to link multiple accounts together. So for the user purposes, they will have one account that they log into, and then they'll be able to switch roles, effectively changing what access they have as that person when they change their roles. That role switching is available up here under the person's name. So you can see up here, I'm logged in as Alaris admin. If I click on that, I will be able to see the list of users that I'm linked to. To manage that linking, I can go into my account, click modify, and see down under permissions these linked accounts. And from here, I'm able to add and remove accounts that are linked to this user. So you can link any which way you want. So you can use this for administrative users, you could use it for testing users, you can use it in a lot of different ways to I guess give people access to other user accounts that they may require to. It can go both ways, or it can go one way. Of course, when you become another user, we also allow you to come back as well. So for all those admins out there who use that login as user feature, you will find that that now allows you to jump back to the user that you logged in as and return back to your original admin account without logging out and logging back in again. Moving along now to the, actually one more thing before I move on past users, we actually have a new function down here called clone role. Clone role allows us to copy all of the permissions, all of the side navigation, all of the calendar events, everything that's related to a role from one role to another. So if you're splitting out your roles or you want to add a new role that's like another role, this will easily allow you to create that new role and copy all the permissions across. We'll obviously help you with this, but you can imagine creating a new teacher role and simply cloning the existing teacher role through to the new one. So that should help create those new roles with them as well. Moving on now to the settings. Quickly going through some of the new settings that we have in the system. Firstly, I mentioned that we've rebuilt the date format system, and this allows us to upgrade all of these date formats. These have been around for a while, but they have worked to limited success. Now you'll find that all dates within the system are controlled through here. You can control all the dates, including input formats, output formats, short and long formats, are all configurable through this system. So if you have a specific date style format that you want to use, you can control that via this particular control. Another area that's had some improvements is under external DB. So under here, you'll find now we have some new connection ability. Firstly, enable Markbook synchronization. We'll turn on that synergetic Markbook synchronization and then enable that so that we write back into synergetic. Obviously, this is only available with synergetic currently, but we do plan on adding this to other databases in the future. But this allows us to write our Markbook data directly back into your reporting platform so that you can use that data in third-party systems. You'll also notice an additional external management portal. This currently allows us to drill down into synergetic SynWeb so that we can provide deep links directly into your SynWeb platform. We use this in particular on the student profile page. We've provided a new link so that you can edit the student profile directly from Schoolbox. One more area in the settings that has seen some change is the third-party services. Under third-party services, you'll now find the Office 365 configuration settings. This is where you can implement your Office 365 changes. We'll have a document up shortly to explain how this all works, but this is how you would integrate Office 365 into Schoolbox, providing that trust relationship between your existing Office 365 system and Schoolbox. That's all for settings now. I'm just going to go now into the new messages configuration system. So we've had some feedback around the complexity of the messages system, and so we went back to the drawing board and we've gone through and tried to re-architect the way this all works to make it a bit simpler, a bit more straightforward. You'll now find when configuring the settings, you have these options to select from, and we've added a new mobile option as well. The new mobile option will be available to schools that purchase a mobile app and integrate it into our mobile app API. So that will allow mobile apps to receive push notifications directly from Schoolbox. So if you're looking to set up a mobile app and get push notifications, that feature is now available from version 15. Obviously, you can tick on how you want that message to be delivered on a per role basis. And it's as simple as just ticking it on and off. Okay. So just a few more things to go in the admin system. Firstly, in the lists area, we've got a new few lists available. The first one I want to point out is submission states. Now, if you're familiar with the Markbook, you would be aware that you can select these submission states in the Markbook. Now, previously, you've had no control over what these are and also what they return as a mark value, both what they return as a mark value, what you have in this list, and also whether they are the default for new submissions. So one of the things we've added as this new version is the ability to automatically set the state following a submission. So if a student submits their work, we can automatically set that work as submitted or pending or any other type of display name that you wish to set for that code. So just something so that teachers can immediately see in their Markbook that that work has been submitted. Now that's up to you how that functions or works, but you can control that all through here. We'll also note that quite a few schools have been requesting the ability to sequence their news topics. Now, these news topics relate to the news tab and on the dashboard when you're seeing news. This sequence allows you to control the order with which those tabs are displayed. This allows you to prioritize which news tabs are the most important for your user and which tab should be displayed as the default tab as well. So no longer do you have to reorder the order of these, you can actually set the sequence manually as well. And the system will respect that both on the news tab and the dashboard. While I'm here as an admin, I'm just going to quickly point out a new feature, which is the ability to manage the curriculum. Now, I haven't provided a link yet to the curriculum, but the curriculum builder allows us to create new curriculum within the system and set the curriculum as we use at the school. Now, you would have heard recently about our partnership with Atlas Rubicon. We're looking to absorb new sources of curriculum. At the moment, we have the ability to import curriculum from only the Australian national curriculum. So we have the ACARA curriculum included as part of this release, but we hope in the next few months to add in Atlas Rubicon as a source as well. The idea being that schools would build their curriculum in Atlas Rubicon and then absorb that information into Schoolbox, where it could then be linked to all of your resources, components, assets, due work and quizzes and criteria within the system. So we're looking to use that as a way to build your curriculum. While we're in here, just to quickly have a look at the different types of curriculum. This is obviously built directly from Akara, so this is just brought in directly from Akara, but it's a hierarchical structure where we have basically just the structure that they have. Now, we expect this to be a sort of a long-term project for most schools, and we see this developing over the next few years to become quite a substantial part of Schoolbox, and we see lots of features being built on top of this in the future. The ability to report on curriculum, the ability to deliver information based on what students have done towards the curriculum. Those are the types of questions we're looking to answer with this curriculum mapping feature. I'll show you a bit more from a teacher's perspective how the curriculum mapping works from their perspective a bit later, but that's where the curriculum is currently being housed, built, and configured and set up as well. Also, just as a new feature from an admin perspective, I just wanted to show you that we've upgraded some of the calendar features. We have a new export functions. Now, in the last release, a lot of you noted that there were some issues with the calendar export features. Now, those issues arose when we joined the timetable in with the calendar export, which caused a large amount of resource load on the server. So as of this release, we have now separated the timetable from the standard calendar events, so you'll be able to subscribe to them separately. The all events will provide 12 months worth of calendar events, while timetable classes and days will only provide the next 3 months worth of data. That should ease the resource issues that we had with presenting a year's worth of timetable, and also the inaccuracy that occurred when we did present to a whole year's worth of timetable, which is often incorrect. You'll also notice there's now a CSV export as well, so you can now get that data both as a URL and as a CSV. In the URL, we've added the new copy to clipboard feature, so you can just click that button to receive that data in your clipboard, so helping you copy and paste that a lot easier as well. The list views had a lot of improvements to improve the look and feel, and all the buttons have been updated in here as well. I think that's about all for my admin section at the moment. I think now I'll quickly log in as a teacher and go through some of the teacher functions. So we'll use the linked accounts, obviously. I've actually linked my admin account to my test teacher, student, and parent account, so I can quickly jump between them. Makes life a lot easier for me. Logging in as a teacher, the first thing, attendances features. So a lot of you have been crying out for the ability to, one, turn off attendances when it wasn't required within the timetable definition, and two, indicating when the attendances have been marked. You can see here that the first one has been marked already. It has a tick next to it, but the one in bold has yet to be marked and is still waiting on the results to be entered. So we can go in and enter those now. So that's the new attendance system. One of the other things that we've added in for synergetic users as well is the ability for substitutions to be shown in this timetable. What that means is that any teacher that has a substitution will automatically see that class show up in their timetable, and they will also be able to mark the attendance for that substitution. That should help with that substitution process. It'll automatically appear and allow them to quickly mark that role as if they were the teacher of that class. And of course, because it appears in their timetable, they will get a quick link directly to that class page so they can go and see what's happening in that classroom as well. So it should help out with that whole process of substitutions. Next up is what's happening on the class page. So I'm just going into the classroom space now. Now, firstly, we've added a new inline preview function. Now, the idea behind this was that previously when you clicked on any of the links or tasks within your course outline, it would take you off to where you would see the activity or download a file or watch a video, whatever it may be that that activity was. That obviously was a break in the workflow for students and could often lead to them being distracted. So what we've done as part of this update is automatically we open the activity in the browser in the exact same class page. So in this case, we've got a link to a YouTube video, but instead of sending them to YouTube to follow that link, we now automatically embed the YouTube video in the system. Now, this auto embed feature works for a range of different content, including videos that you upload into the system, audio that you upload into the system, images, and third-party websites as well. And there's a large range of third-party websites that are supported that will automatically embed. If we can't embed the content, obviously we'll send the person off to the website as well, but we do first try to embed that content and try and have that experience inline in the class page for the students. That inline preview is also, because it was so successful here in the course outline, we've also extended that onto the links and files components. So what that means on your files component now is that if you've got videos automatically in your files component, we can automatically play them directly in just by clicking on them. We no longer download and play them back to the user straight away in the browser. So making it, once again, that seamless experience, so they're not leaving the page to view that file. If we've got the ability to preview it, we will allow them to see that video directly. Of course, that video player is supported on all devices, so on iPads and everything, the video will now play back as well. So instead of using the video player where it embeds the video into the page, you can just use a list of files and it will have the same inbuilt player support as well. Now, some of the things while I was up here at the course builder, you'll notice is that one of the things that we found was the dates that we were having on these were not very clear to the students about what was actually going on with the course. We've now updated those dates to let the students know that the date at the top is actually when this unit will close, not when it's due. So it's now a closed date. And on the actual assessment items, we now list their due date. So you can actually see when this item was due. So we can now see that this was due one day from now, and it was actually on the 15th. While I'm in here, I'm just going to go now off into the submissions page just to show you some of the new features within the submissions area. So as a teacher, I have obviously my students are submitting work into these different areas, and I'm just going to quickly show you some new features within the submissions area. If I click through into the Jerry Springer Show, this is pretty standard, but there is a new report available up here. This report is only available on assessments that are marked with rubrics. But this report shows you the full rubric breakdown per student per criteria. So we can see here all of the criteria, and we can actually assess longitudinally how students did in a particular criteria based on the descriptors they received. So just giving you a bit more information. There's also, of course, the ability to download this data now as a CSV, so you can grab all of the criteria data for a particular assessment as a CSV as well. Going back a few steps now, we're just going to go back and have a look at another new report that we've added. Now, we looked at what teachers were asking us and what especially faculty heads were asking, and that was the ability to see performance data not just across the class but across the whole cohort. So we've added this new Year 9 French Analytics report. You can see here that's specific for Year 9 French. This analytics report allows us to see the performance of students across the entire cohort. So this is really based on the idea of using the course builder function. Using the course builder function allows us to collect the entire cohort and view their entire result sets. So here we can see box and whisker graphs for each assessment that the cohort has done and how they've performed across the spectrum. So we can see exactly how they went for each assessment. We can see where they've progressed to within the actual units. And we can see longitudinal assessment as well for each criteria that's been assessed thus far. Down the very bottom of this report, we also have a scatter graph that's showing us where students are lying within the continuum. The idea being that we would be able to see any students that are trying hard but not getting the results, or getting the results without much effort at all. Those will allow us to identify students that need to move ahead, or perhaps need additional content or material, or perhaps need additional support. A lot of questions have been asked whether this will be extended and padded out with standardized result data, NAPLAN and other types of standardized testing. We do have a plan to extend this in the future. Once that information is available, we will make sure that that data gets integrated into these reports so you can look at students' performance against their standardized results. making sure that they're staying on target as well. So that is the plan for the future with this report as well. Currently we don't have that data, but we do plan to find a way to consume that data in the near future. One of the other things that we've added in now when you're creating quizzes as well, while I'm here, I can see the ability now to create quizzes. And a thing that a lot of people asked for was the ability to send a completion message once someone had completed a quiz. Now this also applies to surveys, obviously, as well. So now you can have a message delivered once the person has completed that activity. So that might be something for them to do or try, or something for them to complete, or perhaps just best wishes and thank you for completing the quiz. One of the things that we have improved significantly over the last 2 releases is our ability to accept files from a range of different sources. As part of this update, we continue to expand our file upload modal, which you would be familiar with. The file upload modal is now available throughout the entire system. Here I'm going to use it as a task upload, but it could be available as a student submission or a student return. There are some new options in here. The 2 new options that you're seeing is the recording option, which allows us to record audio in line. Now, we see this as a very useful feature for a teacher could automatically record their task as a voice task. They could return a assessment for a student as a voice recording. So you can use this in lots of different places and in lots of different ways, but that automatically will obviously record their audio, upload that to the server, and will be available as an embedded media playback as well. The other option that we've got here is the Office 365 integration that everyone has been waiting for. This will allow you to access directly into your Office 365 drive. All you need to do is set up that tenant in the admin system that I mentioned earlier, and then the students will automatically log in to their account and set up the trust, and Schoolbox will then have a trust relationship and maintain access to that student's drive or that teacher's drive. We see this as a great workflow for schools with iPads or other devices where you're using primarily cloud storage. You can have those devices saved to the cloud, and then Schoolbox can access those files directly from the cloud. Working around all the issues with file handling in the iPads, the cloud storage is a great way to go. Obviously, Google Drive was there from the last release, but the Office 365. Okay, that about covers it off for all of my teacher features. There's quite obviously a lot of other little bits and pieces around the system, but I'm not going to go into all of them today. Next up, I'm going to show you from a student's perspective what it looks like, what new features we have in store for students. So just jumping back to my admin account and then back into my test student account. In my test student account, one of the main new features for students is a new submit page. Now, previously we had some issues with the way students were handling and dealing with the submission page. And let me just find a new submission here. So we've now increased the size of the description of that particular assessment. So it now goes 3/4 of the screen, and we have the submission up here in the top right-hand corner. We can see here that this work has not yet been submitted, and clicking on the submit button allows us to start that submission process. Now, from a student's perspective, they get a modal box that they can edit and put text in, and they can also attach files as well. So we can drag and drop those files into the submission, and then once we're ready for that, we can click submit and upload that to the teacher. So that sort of streamlines that process for students, makes it a bit simpler and a bit clearer about what they were doing. Previously, there was a lot of information on that page and they weren't quite clear on whether they were submitting or not submitting. This should simplify that, so they know exactly what they're doing. They're submitting the work, attaching their files, and returning that to the teacher. Some of the other things that happen now when I actually do attach some files, which I'll just do now. Obviously, you can attach multiple files to that submission, but you can now see it clearly says that this has been submitted on time, and you can see the most recent submission. Obviously, if I wanted to view the history, I can see what's gone on and see the complete history of that as well. So just simplifying this page for students a bit, especially the younger kids, and make it a bit clearer and easier for them to understand what's going on with this page. Now, the other part of this that actually has been improved is we're doing a lot of work at the moment on the grades page. Now, the grades page has had this line graph in the past. This is about to be replaced with the box and whisker as well, so that students can see on a box and whisker where they sit within that spectrum. And along with that, we've also changed the way we present the rubric data. Previously, you would have been aware that we were assigning an average grade to the rubric. We found this was not entirely the way that most schools would like it. So what we've done is we've changed the way that happens now. So rather than seeing the actual grade average, you now see the actual descriptors that you received for each assessment that has been done against that particular criteria. So the idea being you'll be able to see all the comments that teachers have given you about each assessment and across each criteria, making it a bit easier to see exactly what's going on and how you're going towards each criteria. This is all expand and collapsible. So if we were to, of course, collapse this information down and see it just like that. And of course, these are all as they were before. That about sums it up for my quick walkthrough today. Now, I'm just going to go back to the questions and answers section and answer any of your questions. So make sure that you start posting them now so I can go through and start answering those questions. So I've currently got no questions. Oh, here they come. They're all coming in now. Thanks very much. So just a question here from Ashley. Do you have any plans to be able to edit files without having to download and then re-upload? That really is dependent on the file type. You obviously would have already seen our Crocodoc integration that allows us to track changes basically over Word documents, PDFs, and other types of documents like that. There is potential scope to expand that to allow other types of editing, but more likely what we're going to see is the further integration of cloud drive services such as Google Drive and Office 365, allowing us to, rather than copy those files, but actually embed the real documents, allowing people to actively engage and collaborate on those documents. So that's the next stage of our integration with Office 365 and Google Drives, to actually allow those to be links and allow teachers to interactively contribute and collaborate on those documents. So I see that as the next stage of integration. But that's something down the track so that you can actually get those real-time editable documents embedded into your Schoolbox. You can, of course, embed them already using their embed code, but the next step for that is the ability to share those so that they're editable and control those permissions based on the permissions that are already defined within the Schoolbox. So you can imagine posting an Office 365 document to your classroom and automatically sharing that Office 365 document with your classroom so that they can read or even edit that document. So that's the next stage of our integration, I believe. Sean has asked, can you explain in detail how the Markbook integration will function with Synergetic? So the Markbook has function in Synergetic, has the ability to, as most people may be or may not be aware, there is a Markbook in Synergetic. Now that sits below the assessments in Synergetic, and that area there is where we'll be writing into the Markbook area. Now the way that works is any mark that is entered into a quiz, so automatically marked or otherwise, any mark that goes into a quiz or any mark that you give to a student's submission through the due work will go into the Markbook in Synergetic as what we call a raw mark. That raw mark is basically a percentage, so you will see the percentage turn up in that Markbook. Now, to control those percentages, you can, of course, set the grading scales and all of those things in Schoolbox so that they align with what is in your Synergetic. And then, of course, when you go to map your Markbook to your assessments in Synergetic, you can just make sure that they use the same scaling system to get the same result. So that's how it works. There's also another part to the synchronization that people should be aware of. There is a background process that we can run, and we intend to run when you request it, that can synchronize all historical data into Synergetic from Schoolbox. So the idea being that we could take the current term's worth of data and synchronize that all into Synergetic in the background, making sure that the whole term's worth of data or the semester's worth of data was in there ready for reporting. So if you are looking to do a bulk load of that data rather than having it as a real-time update, we can do that bulk load for as well on request. So you just need to let us know about that as well. Joshua asks, there was going to be a new way of keeping messages block open or providing a widget for the dashboard listing messages, notifications. Has this come through to production? There's two parts to that question. Firstly, there is actually already within the system the ability to see those messages. Now, we have a component in our dashboards, which if I log in as an admin here, I'll just show you quickly. There is actually a activity feed under dashboards, which already brings through that information. So this homepage activity feed here will actually bring through all of the notifications through to your dashboard already. Now, as you can see here, in terms of that being extended to be always on, yes, as part of the new interface that we have held back for this release but will be available in version 15.5, the messages system takes a new higher priority to this area, but for larger screens, that could be an always-on area where you'll always be able to see the notifications coming in the third column in the right-hand side. That'll be expandable and collapsible, but you could have that always on, so you could always see the messages coming in as well. That's been part of our design for the new framework that we're looking to implement for version 15.5. Good question from David Moore here. Will linking of roles happen automatically when we upgrade to version 15? No, the linking won't happen automatically. And I've just been thinking about how we actually approach this as a task to do. We haven't really got a strategy yet, but it's something that perhaps could be best added into your synchronization scripts. If you wanted to automatically link your staff and parents to if they shared a Synergetic ID, for example, we could make sure that they link together so that they had one, I guess, automatic link together to those accounts. And of course, you can manually control any other accounts that you choose. But yeah, basically it won't happen automatically. It will depend on how many teachers / staff parents you have. You can choose whether you just do that manually or whether you get your sync script updated to handle that situation automatically. That's really up to you. We can talk to you about that individually depending on what you decide. But no, it won't happen automatically. Okay, question here from Graham. How does the trust with Office 365 work? Is that for the machine only or across multiple devices and off iOS? So the trust for Office 365 uses OAuth for the trust protocol. So what that means is it's basically stored within the applications. So once the applications trust each other, that's stored as a trusted application. So that should work across multiple devices as long as you're authenticated as the same user. So it should all theoretically work across multiple devices. Having said that, I'd like to hear people's experience on how that works, but theoretically, once that trust has been established, it should work on all devices. I'm not sure whether it would work outside of the browser, but it should as well work inside the browser. Under the homepage, they may have been designed by our graphic designer in-house. If anyone wants them, we're happy to put them up online and share them with you. If you want to have access to those, we can make them available. That's not a problem. Just send in an email to support and we'll make sure you get access to them. Just a question here from Brendan. Multi-periods marked yet? So I think Brendan may have missed the very start of the presentation, but if I'll just go back to that again. So as a teacher, we added in multiple periods. So there's two types of multiple periods. Firstly, with the attendances, there's the ability to have two classes in the one period, and there's also the ability to have a class that goes over multiple periods. We have support for two classes in one period, but we don't yet have the ability to mark attendance for classes that are over multiple periods. We also have added the ability, you can see here, there's a visual difference between ones that have already been marked and ones that haven't been marked yet. So you will be able to identify which has been completed and which hasn't been completed. So those have all been built in as part of 15 as well. Okay. There's a question here from Ashley. What component are you using to advertise on your dashboard? So on that dashboard, we're using a component called the image scroller. So if I log back in as my admin user, there is a feature in here under dashboards called image slider. There you go. There's actually two of them you'll find, image slideshow and image slider. Don't get confused. Image slider has the navigation ability. So that's got the ability to move backwards and forwards through slides. The slideshow just does its own thing and just slides through automatically with no control. So if you're looking for marketing messages, a good option because it has these little controls here where I can flick through and see the different slides in the system. So the slider is what we use for those marketing messages. David asks, when marking in Crocodoc, can it be open to a full screen for easier marking and feedback? Well, have I got a feature for you? In fact, it does now have that feature built in. So we've added that as part, and I didn't get and show that one, but I'll just quickly jump in now to a submission where we have files submitted. Let me just find one. So you can now see there's a small little arrow here on the right-hand corner of the Crocodoc. Clicking that will now go full screen on that. The marking information has fallen down below, so you can still mark it at the bottom of the screen, but you now have this Crocodoc available in the full screen so you can see the comments alongside, and it should be much easier to manage what's going on in that document. Oops. So Ian asks, would like to see how the editing of student profile details works and that updating back to the SMS works. Sure, no problem. So when you now click on any student's profile in the system, there's a new button here called Pastoral Care. We may rename that. We may rename it to just student profile or update profile or something like that. But ultimately, all that button does is deep link directly into SynWeb. So clicking on that will launch my SynWeb system. And I'm not sure if this is actually going to work because I checked before and the SynWeb system wasn't actually up. But that would load my SynWeb system. It's going to work. And I can log in and access that student's details directly in SynWeb. So the idea being that we can then edit and see all the pastoral information, all the other detail that's in Synergetic is just a click away from the profile screen in Schoolbox. So we didn't want to re-implement all the, I guess, security controls and things like that that are in Synergetic already. So we just wanted to give you access directly to this area in Synergetic. Does that all make sense? Good. Okay, Laura asks, submitting audio recording in the file upload, what is the file format? Is the maximum file size determined by admin role? So just on the file format, we tried a few different formats, but we most consistently got WAV format. So that's what we've settled on for the moment. We may change that in the future once browsers get better at encoding files, but at the moment it's stored as a WAV file. That WAV file will get uploaded to the server and will then be transcoded to an MP3 file for streaming playback, so that users will actually stream it back as an MP3 file. So from all intensive purposes, it's an MP3 in the server, but what you actually store and upload is a WAV file. In terms of how much you can expect in file size to time, our sort of testing showed that for about half an hour of audio, it was about 100 megabytes. So we expect that a typical teacher might be returning a comment. It might be 5 or so minutes. It should be a few megabytes, maybe 10, 15 megabytes for that file to be uploaded. We do hope to obviously improve that in the future and compress it on the client side before we upload it, but currently it's just a standard WAV file. I think I've got to the end of all my questions. Does anyone have any last-minute questions for me before we wrap up this session? Oh, actually, I've got a question here. I just found one. So Brendan asks, which mobile app, Schoolbag? So for those that may not have heard the rumours are that we are partnering with a company called Digistorm. Digistorm has been in the app development business for a few years now, building custom apps for educational customers. You can check out their website. We'll have a further announcement about that partnership in the next few weeks around what we're going to be releasing and organising. That application's already under development and is actually in testing already at schools. So that should be available very shortly. Obviously, the functionality is already in Schoolbox. It's just a matter of engaging Digistorm to build your app, and then you'll be able to use that app. Now, the Digistorm relationship is by no means exclusive. So any app can theoretically integrate with our API, and there's no reason they couldn't. You could have your own in-house app built, or you could use another third-party company. As long as they integrate with our API, they will be able to receive our push notifications and make them available in the app. We do plan with Digistorm to extend that functionality a bit further. We're looking at providing native file system access through to mobile phones and iPads, so that you'll be able to use the app as a native file browser for Schoolbox. That's another additional feature that the Digistorm app will have in the near future as well. Just in terms of the mobile push function, Laura asks, is everything included, newsfeed or certain news items? So the way the push notifications will work is that it will be what is in your little message area up here. So anything that can create a message can end up in your mobile phone. Now, for those that aren't familiar, you can control what turns up on your mobile phone via the settings under your profile here. This settings page allows you to set what ends up. So you'll see now there's a new little mobile phone icon, and I can just mobile phone. So if I want to hear about news posts, or I want to hear about due work, or I want to hear about social stream responses, I've got the choice what goes to my mobile phone and what doesn't. So it's going to be a combination of the school setting defaults and the user tuning those defaults to what they want to hear. So you might decide that it's really important that you hear when students submit work or when an event that's relevant to you turns up. You can fine-tune all of these controls to how you want to hear, whether it's push notification, email, or just a pop-up in your browser. You have the power over all of those. Okay. Excellent. So that about wraps it up. Thank you everyone for asking great questions. They were excellent. I really enjoyed answering all those questions for you today. I hope you got a lot out of today's session, and we've covered off most of the features and functions that are part of version 15. It's obviously quite a large release as always, and we're investing more and more thanks to the success of Schoolbox over the last 6 to 12 months. We're rolling that all back into a better product for you. So thank you everyone for your support. Thank you for everyone for being there and helping us promote the product. It's been great over the last 12 months. So we really appreciate your support. Thanks for coming along today, and I hope to see you all soon at probably EduTech. Thank you.